All right, I have 7 o'clock, so we will begin with the 4 public hearings that we have slated for tonight. So we will call on Mr. Grossi to lead us through those.
Any particular order? Doesn't matter. Great. We'll do that one first. It's right on top. First request for funds is for the replacement of the Francistown fire alarm panel. God, 2 months ago now, school was still in session. We had a major failure of the entire electrical panel, or the entire fire suppression panel, I'm sorry. LCD screen, power supply, and multiple devices throughout the building all failed. We're not quite sure what caused this failure. We're not sure if it was lightning. I know they've had a lot of power fluctuations in the town of Francistown lately. This could have been a lot of different variables. Our long-standing fire alarm contractor responded. We installed a new power supply, a new LCD screen, and addressable horn strobes throughout. This process, which lasted 2 weeks, I believe, required a lot of communication and coordination between the principal, Rachel Hill, and Chief Larry Culgren of the town of Francistown, which I am thankful to both. Anyway, it's back up and running. It's all set, and this expense was $21,500. Sorry for asking for this money after the fact, but there wasn't time to ask for it before. Questions?
Any questions? Yep. Tom, go ahead.
How old was the system?
Original with the building, so it's 26 years old.
So the failure could have been an age-related issue also, or?
No, usually with a simplex panel, usually they're pretty bulletproof. We don't have many failures with many issues with them at all, and we've got their panels throughout the district. This is the only one we've really had this issue with. It's not something that would be on a maintenance schedule to replace, if that's where you're going with it.
Other questions? Okay, let's go on to number 2.
Any suggestions, Brenda? Pierce School, if you remember correctly, 6, 7 months ago now, we were audited by the Office of Civil Rights, the Boston Division. We worked up a price, requested funds for engineering to correct the deficiencies that were found. Engineering was completed, a bid specification was put out to 4 different contractors, and unfortunately, that was late in the bid season for summer work. I don't think we got them out until April. Of the 4 vendors that received the bids, we only received the package to bid, we only received back 1 price. With that expensive money, and the 3 vendors that didn't respond back said, I would really like to do this work. If I had gotten this bid package back in February, we'd probably been able to do something, but my summer's full. So, and I've been on the phone back and forth with the Office of Civil Rights almost weekly. What this request is to set aside monies to show our commitment to the Office of Civil Rights that we are committed to repair this, because this work more than likely now won't be done until next summer. So what we are proposing is we set aside this amount of money, $67,990, and which it could go up, could go down. But what it does, again, we'll put the project back out to bid in February of next year. Hopefully have all 4 vendors bid on it for competitive pricing, and then it allows me to call the Office of Civil Rights or send her an email and say, look, we're committed to fixing this project, or fixing this problem, which is what she's looking for.
Questions? Okay, when we make the motion for this, the way that we will handle it is we will make the motion not to exceed that amount. And then if for some reason the prices are more than what we've approved, then we will come back and have another public hearing to approve the appropriate amount. So, okay, number 3.
Sounds good. This request is for replacement of custodial equipment primarily and some facilities equipment. These are items that would have been in the budget, but were taken out and put in, requested to put in the trust. The majority of the equipment is for custodial, approximately $49,000 of it. That expense consists of vacuums, floor burnishers, carpet extractors, solid surface auto scrubbers, solid surface squeegee vacs, and some floor fans. Facilities department gets a snow blower and some other miscellaneous items. We do have a very rigorous preventive maintenance plan on the equipment, and some of this stuff, some of the items that the guys currently use are when we had contracted service facilities here, which would have been almost 20 years ago. So, again, items would have been in the budget, but they were taken out during the budget season. And they were competitively priced. We've had at least 2 vendors that bid on all of it, and make some of the items, there are 3 quotes for them, so it's very competitive.
Okay, questions for Mr. Grossi?
And then big units, when you walk in the door, it ventilates and you see the carpet extractors there, carpet and floor machines, squirt water on it, suck it up. Commercially, I mean, it's got 17, 18-inch wand on it and work pretty good. 600,000 square feet of flooring, we need them.
Other questions? Okay, and finally, number 4.
Yeah, last but not least is the Peterborough Elementary School roof. This is the beginning stages of replacement for the 3-story wing roof at Peterborough Elementary School. It's approximately 34 years old and is showing signs of failure. What this proposal is for our roofing consultant to come in, which we've used twice now. They put together a bid spec, utilize current building codes to create the specification, and they put it out to bid. When we've done this in the past, and again, we've done it 2 other times with them, it's amazing how the pricing comes in. It could be as high as $310,000 and as low as $190,000. Same project, same bid spec, so it's money well spent to have the engineering done and to have our consultants walk through this process. So once this is approved, there will be another request for funds once we put it out to bid, which will be next year for hopefully installation over the summertime, 2026.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, again, we have to keep the, excuse me, we have to keep the public hearings open for half an hour, so we will go on with the agenda. We are going to not have, whoops, excuse me, we will call to order and have the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join me. Okay, now we will not be having the approval of the manifest tonight. That will be done at the next board meeting in 2 weeks. So we will move down to public comment. Do we have members of the public who wish to speak to the board tonight? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our reports and start with Mr. Hamilton.
Thanks. I have 3 reports, and I'll take them in order. First up, the Withdrawal Study Financial Subcommittee. And the subcommittee met on July 17th for the first of two meetings to engage the financial implications of withdrawal. We reviewed several topics ranging from the current FES and TES budget items and staffing to the disposition of property and trust funds. As we went along, we identified information that was still needed, and our next subcommittee meeting later this week will be devoted to finishing up that work. And if there aren't any questions, next up is communications. Communications met on July 22nd. The meeting's sole focus was planning for the upcoming community forum covering the new bell-to-bell ban on personal communication devices. The forum is being held on Wednesday, August 13th at 7 p.m. in the Lucy Herland Theater at Conval High School. The forum will be live streamed on the Conval Events YouTube channel, and you can submit questions in advance or during the presentation by emailing forum@conval.edu. That's forum@conval.edu. If there aren't any questions, I'll move on to the next. We have the Withdrawal Study Committee. We met on July 21st. We spent time reviewing the work of the subcommittee, and the majority of the meeting was devoted to the consideration of transportation, staffing, and educational components of withdrawal. That's it.
Okay, any questions on any of those? Okay. We'll call on Janine now for policy.
We have a second reading tonight for policy EEAG, use of private vehicles to transport students and for other school purposes, later on in the agenda. Our work group met on July 25th. It was very productive. Dr. Forrest has developed a system for the review of the approximately 31 policies from the spring update that we need to have in place fairly quickly, some of them by July 1st. The system allows us to make significant progress, headway through the 17 priority policies, and as a result, that are a result of the legislation from the recent session, and the changes in the 306 administrative rules has caused us to have to make pretty significant changes in some of our policies. On the top of the agenda, of course, is on August 14th. We have our next meeting, full committee meeting, regular meeting on August 14th, which is on a Thursday night, so it's not on a Tuesday night. Will be the parental rights policy and the unauthorized electronic communication device policy, among the most important things that have to be in place as quickly as we can get them. The August 15th workshop is canceled because we got so much done. And we got so much done because of Kat. She is relentless. She's relentless. And on top of it, she had to try to teach me for 2 hours how to do it. And I still don't know how to do it. So anyway, we returned to our normal schedule on August 23rd, I think it is, which is the fourth Tuesday. Is it the 6th? I thought I just looked at it today. Okay. But it's the fourth Tuesday of the month, and then we just go onto our regular schedule unless we find that we need to do more work to get ourselves up to speed.
Any questions for Janine? All right. Okay. Jim, budget and property.
No foghorn for that, though, Curtis. We spent most of the time today talking about the trust fund guidance document. We know what the purpose of trust funds is, but we're going to the next level of detail in terms of how we can use them. And after that, we're going to talk about the balance. We can revisit the balance, trust fund desired balance, and also the investment. of the trust funds. We need to tie that together with a long-term capital improvement plan. We've got a short-term plan. We know what we want to spend this year or next year. We know we're going to spend this year, and what we're going to put in the budget for next year is subject that we'll talk about later. And we need a long-term plan. I don't know, Mike, if you want to talk about your subject now or later. Okay,
After you're through.
right after it's done.
Yep.
Okay. So we're working on tracking the numbers and coming up with a long-term plan on what we need to do. There's a very quick update on the transportation RFP. That is going to be coming out September 2nd. We need to get the transportation RFP out. And Neil will be giving we'll be discussing at the next board meeting. The RFP details, what we're going to include in there or not. If anybody has any questions about the RFP or wants to get involved in the details, we'll get you access to the Budget and Property website. The draft RFP is out there, and what else did you put on the website? Current contract and draft RFP. Previous.
I think it's in the drive, not on the website, correct?
That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. Well, just to clarify.
I go to the same, I gotta go to my, I get to DuckDuckGo is how I get there, so I call it the website. And then the other thing that Michael let Mike talk about.
All right, as one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is our facilities. And so as board chairman, I'm going to put together an ad hoc committee whose charge will be to look at all of our facilities, the condition the facilities are currently in, what it would take to bring facilities up to where they need to be. We will look at how those facilities are being used educationally, the groupings that we have, grade levels within each of the facilities, and look at where we need to be going forward. So what I would like to do with this ad hoc committee on facilities is, if board members are interested in being on that committee, please contact me, and we will get that set up and get it going. Again, we've talked a lot about the use of our facilities. We've talked a lot about the condition they're in. But we really need to look at what we're going to do going forward, both facility-wise and educationally, to make sure that we're using our facilities to the utmost importance, and that we're making sure that our students are being educated the best. So, questions? Yes.
That it's not a revisit of shutting down any elementary school by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
Not that.
no. And
Just read that.
this is a study to look at putting together information that tells us these are the things that we need to be looking at doing now and planning for the future, rather than trying to do it in a hodgepodge fashion. So once the study is completed, then that study will be presented to the board, and we can talk about any actions that the board wants to take based upon the results of that study. Yes.
If I can add, in terms of the middle schools and the high schools, we do have a good comprehensive list of things that need to be done as a result of the assessment, the physical assessment the architects did when we looked at the CTE high school programs. We've got a massive list of things to do. We need to prioritize those and decide how those might work into a longer range plan. Okay, so there's a lot. This is really not. It's just taking the information we have and assessing it, marrying it with how we might use facilities from a student point of view. But the physical status of the facilities we've got a good handle on. We don't have a plan for how to fund it and what we're gonna do first, but we do know what needs to be done.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay. Go ahead.
So I did get some feedback from some online viewers, and they're not hearing everyone. They could hear Mike very well, and Mike is talking directly into his microphone. So just a reminder, even if your microphone's on, if you're leaning back, people online don't hear you. So you have to talk right into your microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, just to clarify, because we've had some confusion, the consent agenda is, in the past, we have not voted on the consent agenda. If there were questions, we answered questions, but the way that we're going to handle this is that we will go through some of the things in the consent agenda. If there are questions from people and things that we need to vote on, then we will pull them out of the consent agenda and do them individually. Otherwise, when we're through with the things in the consent agenda, then we will vote on everything that's in the consent agenda as a whole. And so hopefully that will straighten things out with that. Okay. So going forward, do you have any comments about the consent agenda?
So in your consent agenda, you have the last board meeting minutes. We have personnel, some nominations for teachers, for stipends, and enrollment. We do need to, there's a leave request, so we need to pull that one item out of the consent agenda, and I can share information in a non-public. So I ask that you move to take that one item out of the consent agenda before voting on the consent agenda as a whole.
Other questions? Okay, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda after pulling out the one leave request?
Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of approving?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, superintendent's report. Dr. Forrest?
Okay, monthly events for August. On Thursday, we have a withdrawal financial subcommittee meeting at 6. Anything else for this week?
I was still on the consent agenda. Pardon me for catching up. Did you say that the withdrawal, you noted the finance subcommittee on the 7th?
Yes.
Okay.
No, just this week. This week? Okay. Next week, we have the community forum on August 13th at 7 p.m. in the Lucy Hurlin Theater. And it's not on your calendar in front of you, but there is a policy committee meeting on Thursday, the 14th at 6 p.m. And the agenda for that has already been sent out.
Can I add a communications meeting on the 12th tentatively if we need it to prepare? And then I can email the committee tomorrow and see if it's necessary.
Sure. So communications committee on the 12th at what time?
6?
Okay. The week of August 18th on the On the 19th, there's a Budget and Property Committee meeting at 5:30 PM, followed by a school board meeting at 7. And that Thursday, there's a Selectmen's Advisory Committee meeting at 6, followed by the Withdrawal Study Committee meeting at 7. Anything else for that week? Oh, the goals.
You mean the goals meeting?
Yes, the goals.
Yep. Dr. Forrest will talk about the, down farther on the, is the goals that the administration talked about, and then we'll talk about another meeting for us.
During the final week in August, there's a policy committee meeting on Tuesday, the 26th at 6 PM. And that Thursday is the first day of school for students. Anything else for August? Okay, in September, on Tuesday, the 2nd, we have a Budget and Property Committee meeting at 5:30 PM, followed by a school board meeting. Anything else for the first week in September? Right now, there's nothing scheduled for the second week in October.
There will be a withdrawal study committee meeting on the 11th.
On the 11th, Withdrawal Study Committee.
Yes.
So just Withdrawal Study Committee.
Yes, not a subcommittee, a full committee meeting. $6.
We are in September. So on September 11th, Thursday, September 11th, a Withdrawal Study Committee meeting at 6 PM. During the third week of September, we have a Budget and Property Committee meeting at 5:30 on Tuesday, the 16th, followed by a school board meeting at 7. Anything else for the third week of September? Okay, during the fourth week of September, we have a Policy Committee meeting scheduled for Tuesday, the 23rd at 6 PM at the SAU. And on Thursday, the 25th, there's Selectmen's Advisory Committee at 6 PM, followed by Withdrawal Study Committee at 7. Anything else for September? Communications? Okay. Okay, school board requests. Thank you for your patience. We have, as you know, we have 2 new people to the SAU staff, and we still have a position that our new assistant superintendent won't be here till the 18th. But outstanding requests, we have the pre-K request, and I'm gonna send out the stipend formula that both Jim and Greg have signed, so you have that. Have I forgotten anything? Just to. Okay. Next, we have the school handbooks, which were shared with you. And we need to vote on each of those separately. So that's 12, we've got the blended learning handbook. So
Okay.
12 handbooks to go through.
If we can, we're right about the end of the public hearing, so if we can finish that up, then we'll go on to the handbooks. Okay, back to the public hearing. So the first one will be the Francistown Elementary fire alarm, which is a request for $21,500 out of the building capital reserve. Can I have a motion for that, please?
Move to permit the expense of $21,500 from the Capital Reserve Trust Fund for the purpose of the Francistown Fire Alarm Panel.
Second.
Any further questions on that? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the second one is the Pierce parking lot. Again, we're going to, I'd like a motion that says that we will have up to $67,990 out of the building capital reserve again.
Move to approve an expenditure of up to $67,990 for the purpose of the Pierce School parking lot ADA compliance from the Conval Building Capital Reserve Fund.
Second.
Okay, any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. The third one is the request for custodial and facilities equipment out of the Equipment Trust Fund, with the total being $55,833. Can I have a motion, please?
Move to approve expenditure of $55,833 from the Equipment Trust Fund for purposes of custodial and facilities equipment.
Second.
Okay, further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, our last request is the roof at Peterborough Elementary School to have the study done for $18,271.20.
Move to approve the expenditure of $18,271.20 for the purpose of engineering studies of the Peterborough Elementary School roof from the Conval Building Capital Reserve Fund.
Second.
Okay, further questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, there we go, Mr. Grossi. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the handbooks.
You could go in alphabetical order by, I like to do it by level. So all the elementary, then middle, then high.
Okay, so first of all, we have Antrim Elementary School. Questions about the handbook for Antrim Elementary? Yes, Cap.
I don't have a question specifically about Antrim. I did send some feedback that I don't think should uphold the vote, like keep us from approving these, but I did send it to you and Brenda and Mike, Brenda and Mike, just so it's just some feedback that I have about some really small things, but I don't think it should hold up the vote in general. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay,
That
And-
there's an email for you guys.
and
about
you
that.
sent those to
To the three of you.
the
just-
three of us?
Yeah, just to
Okay.
provide some feedback, just on small things like contact people or specifics about the cell phone. I was just looking for policy stuff, so there was just a couple of things that I noticed.
We did, because we've made some changes recently. I noticed that several of the handbooks have contact people that were in those positions, or a couple of the handbooks say TBD, to be determined, as the new person is. So we'll have to make sure that those are taken care of.
I think, why not just name them and then you can approve them with changes noted,
Right. Yep.
right?
Okay. Other questions about Antrim's handbook?
Yeah, why not?
Well, the contacts at the end are they're in the mental health section. Like, for example, like one at the high school, it still lists like Terry Drogue as
Let's start with Antrim then.
yeah. Oh, okay. So,
AES, yeah.
okay.
Anything for AES.
I don't think so.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the Antrim Elementary School Handbook.
I move that we approve the Antrim Elementary School Handbook.
Second? Okay. All right, if there are no further questions, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the next one is Bennington Elementary School. Any questions about that handbook? Oh, can I have a motion to approve that handbook then?
I move that we approve the Bennington handbook.
Second?
Second.
Okay. If there are no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Dublin.
I move that we approve the Dublin Elementary School Handbook.
Second? Okay. Any questions about the handbook? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Francistown. Can I have a motion?
I move that we approve the Francistown Elementary School Handbook.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Greenfield.
I move that we approve the Greenfield Elementary School Handbook.
Second.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Hancock.
I move that we accept the Hancock handbook, elementary school handbook.
Second?
I second, but I have something to say about that.
Okay. Questions?
So
Yep.
I could not find a paragraph in there about the cell phone policy. It's in all the other ones. Maybe I don't have the most updated one, but I could, well, never mind. Okay.
Okay. Other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Peterborough.
I move that we accept the Peterborough Elementary School Handbook.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Temple.
Move that we accept the Temple Elementary School handbook.
Seconds?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Great Brook. Can I have a motion? Yeah, go ahead.
I move that we accept the Great Brook handbook.
Second?
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? SMS.
I move that we accept the South Meadow School Handbook.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And finally, on to the high school. We have a motion to, yes. Yeah? Yeah?
It wasn't actually in the high school handbook. It was in a different handbook, but I can't remember which one it was, which is why I didn't bring it up. No, but I didn't write down exactly which one it was. So I just think that everybody needs to just go through those contacts. That's all. That's
I
really
think
all I
it's
wanted to say.
SMS. But yes, we have a section of who to contact, and it's mainly school counselors. And in the high school section, in some handbooks, Terry Drogue is still identified. Terry retired at the end of last year, so everybody should just double check that section.
Thank you, Kat. I move that we accept the high school handbook.
Second.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, there's one other section. We need to approve
The blended learning handbook.
okay. Can I have a motion to approve that?
I move we approve the blended learning handbook.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, any questions on that handbook? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that takes care of the handbooks. Okay, Janine, second reading?
Okay, the policy that, we have a policy for our second read adoption tonight, policy EEAG, the use of private vehicles to transport students and for other school purposes. This has been well vetted by the committee and by our legal team and by Primex Insurance, so it is ready to go.
Okay. Any questions?
Move that the board adopt policy EEAG.
Second?
Second.
Okay. If there are no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, down to new business. Yep, Mr. Cass, you want to go through the fund
Sure.
balance discussion?
Good evening. This is largely in preparation for a vote at your next meeting concerning fund balance and retainage. Last week, the auditors were here and all went fairly well. It was kind of a crazy week, but it went well. And they are working on finalizing the numbers, which we will have by the next meeting. And of course, the most important number, at least Jim keeps asking me for, is the unreserved fund balance. So the unreserved fund balance is really the surplus at the end of the year. The year ends June 30th. And it's made up of expenses that came in under what was budgeted, revenue that came in higher than was budgeted, and then the unused contingency from last year that was voted last year by the board, which none of that was expended during the year, is also part of that. At your next meeting, we'll have the auditor's numbers. I'll go through those and really review what that amount is and an explanation of why we have a fund balance, sort of where those came from. It has a lot to do with really unfilled positions largely. So the uses of the fund balance, once it's done, first it goes towards the approved capital reserve expenditure. Annual meeting, and the voters voted $900,000 to go into the building capital reserve, as well as $25,000 to go into the energy trust fund. So that's already set. That will use that portion of it. The board, during the budget process, committed $500,000 to be returned to taxpayers. So that will be part of that, as well as there's the $500,000 from the health insurance maintenance fund that was transferred, that is available, that will also be used. The remaining fund balance, there's really two places that can go. One is it can be retained in the contingency fund, and if you look at pages 17 and 18 in your packet, you'll see the statute on that. So a contingency fund, and then whatever isn't used in a contingency fund of the remaining is used to offset taxes. And again, at next meeting, we'll go through that and can sort of show how that plays out. So in March of 2021, the voters voted a warrant article to allow the contingency fund, you to retain funds. This authorizes the board to vote that every year, up to 5% of the current assessment, which is the local portion of the taxes. And then the board, the statute says the board can authorize the expenditure of that for unanticipated expenses after a public hearing. The current board policy actually says that you can retain up to 2.5%, and it's used for emergency purposes. Given sort of I think we're going to have a fairly significant fund balance, you may want to retain enough to sort of level taxes so you're not seeing jumps over a couple of years, as well as sort of with the uncertainty of some of our grant funding, you may want to consider looking at that policy and you still have that, but raising the policy to match the statute, I think would probably be the best thing. And then you can make individual decisions year by year. You still make that. So, and before you have to make that decision, you'll see all the numbers and it will be very clear. Part of the problem is if you have a big amount returned one year, the next year you do not have that amount. So you want to sort of make sure that you're planning out and spacing it out so you're not having spikes and valleys.
Questions? Yeah.
Do you have a calculation, Neil, of what's the maximum, the 2.5% maximum would be? It's around $1 million or so, right?
I'll present all the numbers
But
next
the maximum
next
is around,
week. Next week, 2
policy
weeks.
right now suggests we can retain approximately $1 million. If we change it to match the statute to 5%, it means we can retain up to $2 million. I have no idea where his numbers are, because he won't tell me. So we're going to be able to cover, we have to cover the trust funds, 925. We've got enough to cover the $500,000 we committed on the return to taxpayers. And I read the tea leaves, I think Neil said we got enough to cover the maximum policy allows, maybe more, because it suggests liquid policy, so. It's a good discussion to have.
I just want to be clear, I'm not trying to keep anything hidden. I just don't want to present a number until I know it's the accurate number. And by your next meeting, we will have that information from the auditors and can present the actual number.
Kind of discussion we want to have.
Right. I mean, it's best that we make sure of what the numbers are before then we can talk about the pros and cons of how much we want to retain versus how much we want to return.
One more piece of historical information. The first time we were ever allowed to retain money was after COVID. The governor issued executive order number 30, I think it was, which allowed us to retain money. We did retain $320,000 that year. We didn't spend any of it. The first year we could retain money by our policy was after fiscal year 23 closed. So for the fiscal year 23-24, 2 years ago, we voted to retain the maximum, $1,009,338. Last year, we voted the numbers weren't as hefty, so we retained $603,000. The $603,000 goes back in the pot, so the numbers are bigger than the excess because we've got bigger than what we didn't spend last year because you got the 600 left over. You'll follow the numbers next week better.
Okay. Janine?
That kind of speaks to my question. So we didn't spend it this year, and how much did we have this year in that retained fund?
It was 6.
Okay, so what happened, so the one for the $1.3 million from the previous year, we gave back, that was part of like, the unexpected, like what we gave back?
Right.
Okay.
It's part of the year-end fund balance that you'll determine where it goes, but that 603,000 is part of that.
Okay,
It
so.
doesn't get expended, it becomes part of the fund balance.
Okay, so I guess that, like, why don't we spend it instead of taking the money out of the trust funds? Is there like a thinking behind that?
Yeah, because the law is required to be used for emergency, very strict reasons of why you can use it. It has to be emergency.
Okay, we haven't had any emergencies? I don't,
The law requires unanticipated.
Right.
The policy says
yes,
emergency.
yeah, I think there
is
was
a
a fight
difference.
about that. Wasn't there like a lawsuit about that, the unanticipated? It had to do with somebody's like burner, like, I don't know, some kind of burner in the school, another school, it was another district. But, okay, well, I'm just curious, that maybe we can recognize that sometimes we do have an anticipated, and like you said, the, some of the funds are, the funds that we usually count on from both the state and the federal government are getting kind of shaky. Okay, thanks.
And I think, again, once we have the exact numbers in front of us, it will be easier to decide what we need to do. So, Dr. Forrest, did you have a comment? No. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? No. Administrator goals.
Okay, so tonight we're presenting our school goals. As far as the goal setting process, just to give you an overview, this starts at the school level, reviewing school level data. Administrators work with their staff to identify areas of concern or areas they want to further improve. They develop draft goals and then work to refine those goals. They turn them into SMART goals, which stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. And then they create a plan for achieving each of those goals. And tonight they're here to present their goals to you for questions and feedback. So every goal, I'm just showing you the template. Every goal has kind of a plan of how they'll achieve it. And so this is just an example of in this template, they put in their goal, they identify how it aligns to our strategic plan, and then they identify all the tasks that need to happen, the resources they need, start and end date for those specific tasks, how they'll determine that it was completed or achieved, and the person's responsible. So you're getting kind of just like a slice, you're getting the goals tonight, but there's also a lot behind the work that they have done. So we're going to start with elementary. So I'm going to ask the elementary group to come up to the back table and turn on the microphone and make sure you talk into the microphone. And they're going to share their goals and the reason behind why these goals specifically.
So, good evening. As you are well aware, school board,
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh,
too?
I'm
sorry.
so sorry. This is Sean Hilliard. I'm the principal at Greenfield Elementary, and I also have the privilege of being an instructional coach in the district and have worked with a focus on math instruction and the implementation of our new math curriculum. And so that was our first goal. We met again, as Ann said, with staff, and then as a principal group, looking at what we felt were the focus areas we really needed to write our goals around, math being one of them. This goal is really based on what we need to do to support staff to make sure they are utilizing the curriculum that we are moving forward with, illustrative math, in a way that brings about the results that we know we can get from this if it is done in an appropriate way using the best math teaching practices. And so it is a teacher-facing goal, so to speak, but we know that if we strengthen that instruction, that will lead to a strengthening of student outcomes. Any questions about that goal?
Hello, my name is Beth Gibney, and I'm the principal over at Antrim Elementary. To piggyback a bit on some of the things that Sean was just mentioning, our goal here is also a teacher-facing goal in order for us to really increase the capacity for teachers to roll out and implement the science of reading through targeted professional development, instructional coaching, and data-informed practices. While our math goal is really focusing around the rollout of a program, we're going to be focusing literacy to really dive into that science of reading and all of the best practices and research that exist right now. And if we can harness that, we believe that the grade level reading proficiencies will continue to grow, as well as individual growth targets for students will also increase. So it's not necessarily around program, but utilizing the resources that we currently have to reflect the science of reading and best practices and to really build that capacity. Any questions that you might have?
Hello again. I'm Jess Vizina. I'm the principal of Hancock Elementary School, and I'm also an instructional coach in the district, focusing more on the literacy aspect. So this is a continuation of my presentation for you guys. I mentioned some of these things when I was last here about multi-grade classrooms, but we really wanted to have a goal and an action plan that we could all follow at each school so that we are still saying on the same plan as we establish multi-grade classrooms in our schools. And so right now we've actually completed some of the steps, one of them being multi-grade transition team. We have set up some summer professional development that we've been working with the teachers who are going to now be teachers in multi-grade classrooms. I believe that every school has been able to do this professional development or is going to be before we start school. We have started already with the professional development opportunities for our teachers, looking at classroom management, differentiation, and then we also want to make sure that we spread that out throughout the school year. So our goal is to deliver a minimum of 3 professional developments throughout the year. And then we can get some feedback from staff to say, what are some areas that you're struggling in? How can we help you? Consistent classroom structures. Again, we've been doing a lot of this work already over the summer to make sure that in each of our buildings, we have a set of routines and procedures that we can follow through each classroom so that the language, again, will be the same. And then engaging families through informational meetings and ongoing communication, making sure that all of the families that we have in our communities understand what multi-grade instruction is going to be looking like at each school because it is different. And we're going to monitor our progress through several different ways. So we have our action plan. We have all of our planning documents, any agendas that we do for professional development, any classroom observations that we do, family communication logs, presentation, and then with our action plan, we have different benchmarks that we want to meet throughout the school year to make sure that we're implementing multi-grade instruction across each classroom.
I have a few questions. So about the multi-grade classrooms, is this for all the schools? What about,
So,
because Peterborough doesn't
Yep.
have.
So I can talk about PES, their goal that they do not have multi-grade classrooms. So if we want to actually go to the next slide, I can do that
Sorry.
too. No, that's okay. Because Peterborough does not have multi-grade classrooms, what Tammy wanted to work on was more of their MTSS-B framework, which is the behavior piece at her school. So they already have a team that looks at responsive classroom, but what she wants to do is to really create a tier 1 universal team that incorporates the team that has already been established. So she's not doing something in addition to, but she wants to revise the way that that team meets and what they're looking at. So they're going to really start looking at behavioral data, making sure that they're looking at school-wide best practices in terms of behavior across the board. So that's what Peterborough is going to be doing instead of multi-grade.
I have a couple more questions.
Go ahead.
Sorry. And this is mostly to guide our work here at the school board. So, and sorry, I jumped the gun on the
No
multi-grade thing.
worries.
So I saw for math that there's like 100% that all the teachers will be having their professional logs. For reading and the multi-grade, how are we going to know if you've achieved those goals? So like what, and that is just to help us to figure out what our goals, like what we're going to be working towards.
One of the pieces that we talked about as principals was the fact that many of the professionals that are coming on as newer teachers right now, need to pass the reading proficiency, the reading foundational assessment in order to get their certification. And then we have kind of a mix of people that have had to do that versus some people that have chosen to do that through individually taking letters training. One of the pieces that we all discussed is that could be a really great baseline data for us to take a look at and give a practice assessment to those who have not, and a refresher to those who have passed that assessment. And that would be our baseline. And then as we do the professional development and really taking a look at the lessons and the things that people will be instructing to make sure that we are growing in that way. So that would really be our baseline, and our data at the end to be a pre and a post for the individual, for the teachers, and then to compare that to the fall benchmark assessments with the winter and the spring benchmark assessments. So you really get a little smattering of where the instructors are at and then where the students are at to compare the two.
And if I may, one of the things we talked about is our schools, even on assessment data, can be very different. So if you look at the end of our literacy goal, there is the idea that we will be setting a goal at each school for how much more we want to see of students achieve proficiency. We did find, though, when we set a goal district-wide, it was a really big stretch for some schools because where they started, and hardly a stretch for other schools. And so what we're going to do is set those individual student goals once we have data to work from at each of our schools.
Thank you.
Yes.
I am jumping if I'm misremembering this, but I think another thing with the math is we have routinely used NWA, which is a nice outside measure, but it's not directly connected to the teaching and learning that's happening in the classroom. So as we are implementing this new program, we're also going to really be looking at the assessments offered through the program that assess students' knowledge of grade level content. And at the end of the year, hope to be able to incorporate some of those assessments into our goals, because I think that will
Yes,
provide us with better information. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, the expectation is that math educators will be keeping data on unit assessments minimally. That will be shared with me, and I will then take a look at where we're seeing growth. We'll then also take a look at comparing that to the same school's NEWA data and seeing where those are showing us the same kind of growth or not, and hopefully why. And that will then give us, after this year, again, sort of that benchmark data. So then the following year, we can really look at the areas, and it may be strands even more, right? But we'll delve into that. But right now it is that they will be gathering that data, and we will be warehousing that data so then we can use that data to continue to set goals.
Okay. Thank you. Janine?
And just to be clear, these goals are shared across all 8 elementary schools. Okay.
Yes, with the exception of the one that's different.
PES,
Yeah,
right.
PES for the one, but PES will share the literacy and math goal the same as all of us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, Tom?
So just, I wanted to clarify the point that Superintendent Richards brought up, which is that we're going to use assessment connected to the math program, and we're going to compare that to the statewide exams. Is that what I heard you say, Sean?
Yes, so my goal is to be able to gather data from every math instructor, math educator, minimally on unit assessments, and take a look at that and how that aligns, because an interesting thing we already look at is how SAS and NEWA align, right? Where we see strengths in both of those assessments or not, areas of need. So we'll take a look at that, and that will then help us determine where our focus should be for a more specific student-facing goal in alignment with the illustrative math curriculum.
Because I guess one temptation is to teach to statewide exams in order to boost our standing on a apples to apples comparison. I called it a temptation. But I'm curious as, what your thoughts are about that. I saw a lot of head shaking no, so just if you could elaborate.
Unit assessments are going to give us data that will be across all of those content areas with an ability to also do things like exit tickets. There's lots of other snapshots data that are part of this curriculum that we're now implementing. If I may go out on a limb for a minute, if we only use something like NEWA data, you could almost argue it's like taking your child to the doctor, seeing how tall they are, and having the doctor say whether they're healthy or not just by their height. It's one snapshot. So we don't want to throw that away. It's still useful. It's still a useful indicator, but we want to couple that with indicators that go across the school year, because then we're really going to get a fuller picture of where our students are and where we need to focus. I hope that answered.
Another way that I often look at it too is there's open assessments and closed assessments. So the open assessment is the NWA district assessment and the SAS state assessment, and more of a closed assessment or any kind of formative assessment often goes to the program. So being able to formatively decide, okay, based on how the students are performing on those unit assessments and those exit tickets and those kind of daily practices, what types of tweaks do we need to do to our instruction in order for those students to keep moving, almost a progress monitoring, if you will, while the NWA and the SAS are more of an outside, not considering the program and taking a look at, okay, and are they, it's another dipstick, and are they making progress towards those national norms or state norms, and in addition to the standards. So kind of looking at it as a cross-reference and triangulation of information to start to determine of, is there additional professional development that we need to be doing with our staff, and or other targeted instruction we need to do with the students. So I completely understand how, yes, there is that temptation on some parts, but it's not at all what I believe that we're interested in doing, because we want to see, is what we're instructing working, and are they making adequate progress?
So I'm very curious if we end up finding out that our assessment is that the students are making progress and what we're doing is working, and yet it's not being reflected on the state exams. So, which is not an indictment at all, but it's not an indictment on us. It's an indictment, if what we're saying is true, that the state exams are flawed in how they are measuring students' progress and overall ability in those areas.
And I think it's really another piece of data that we then are able to take a look at and say, all right, here's another piece to the puzzle. However, where are we putting eggs in baskets?
And yes, and this whole implementation is about teaching students how to be problem solvers, how to be creative thinkers. So really, what we did see last year, and one of the driving factors as to why we chose Illustrative over Eureka Squared, was because we saw students whose teachers had piloted Illustrative actually have students who, not hugely, but did score higher in general on many areas on those more standardized tests. So actually, we've already seen some data that would indicate when we do a good job with this curriculum, we will also have students who are feeling confident about math and therefore more able to show what they know on things like NEWA and SAS.
So would you say that's one of the goals built into this, at least with the math program, of boosting our statewide assessment scores?
Yes, because I want to be able to show that our students are becoming proficient math students. And that, I believe, is, and don't want to speak for that, but I believe that's one of the reasons we were looking at a new math curriculum, because we didn't believe what we were doing was getting the results that we felt we should be getting.
Thank you.
So I do want to share for middle school, Mr. Conway could not be with us. He played baseball a little too hard and needed to have surgery today. And he gave me permission to share that. But he would be here if he could, but we assured him it was important that he take care of himself, so he was ready for the beginning of the school year.
So great to be here again. Adam Carragher. I am the principal at Great Brook School. And sitting next to me.
I'm Dan LeGros, the assistant at South Meadow School.
So we're going to just share briefly about our middle school goals. In the middle schools, we do have one of our goals, which is in common, which is a goal around culture and climate. So the goal is by June of 2026, GBS and South Meadow will improve overall school climate and student engagements as evidenced by a 10% increase in positive student survey responses about school climate as measured by the PBIS student survey. So the first thing I want to do is I want to dispel any significant concerns. It's not that the culture is not good, right? Culture is a very important thing in a school. It's essential that students, that staff, that the community is all ingrained in what goes on in a middle school and in a school. So while things are good, the question becomes, how do we continue to make things even better? How do we continue to grow that? And so that was a big part of why this was selected. It was also selected as something that the staff had mentioned through conversations, through surveying of staff at South Meadow, through conversations that I've had with staff at Great Brook, that it just seemed like a very important place to make sure that we're still focusing on our culture and our climate of the school. So for that reason, we chose to have this as one of our goals for this school year. At GBS, we also have a multi-tiered system of support. This particular goal, we've spent the last couple of years working really hard and really diligently on our Tier 1 supports at Great Brook. And so after seeing some great fruit from that labor, from that work that we've done, and some of the systems that we put in place, we recognized that there was a need to look at some of our Tier 2 systems of support, which are, if you will, some of those students that need a little bit more. Tier 1 is for everybody, right? And that's the classroom experience. Tier 2 is where you look at specific students who are who need some specific interventions in order to help them be more successful. It's not a long-term thing, it's a short-term thing. It's an 8-week short-term intervention in order to help those students progress, in order to help them understand and ultimately learn better, right? So we wanted to really kind of put it out there that we want to identify at least 3 standardized Tier 2 interventions and really practice those to fidelity. I'm going to hazard a guess. We may do 1, do 2, do 3, and it may end up being 4, 5, and 6 because we want to find the ones that are going to work for our students. And we're going to find the ones that really provide the most for supporting our kids at Great Brook. So that's, again, one of the goals that we selected at Great Brook. Finally, for GBS, of which both GBS and SMF has an academic goal, our academic goal at GBS is going to be math related. So over the last 3 years, prior to this year, we had the goal of 70% of students will score at 50% on the NWEA assessment or better. So with the results that came in, we noticed that math was not quite, I guess I would say, as successful. We didn't see as much jumps in the math results of those assessments. So logic dictates that we want to try to concentrate a little bit more of our efforts in that area. At the same time, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing the things that we have been doing, because we've been seeing some very good gains, some excellent success in our ELA programs. And we want to continue to see that grow, but we do recognize and see that there is a need to spend a little bit extra and do a little bit more in math in order to help our GBS students continue to grow and continue to excel in that realm. Yeah, I will note, our GBS students in the NWEA last year, 59.9, somewhere around there, scored above the 50th percentile. In NWEA, the 50th percentile means that that's halfway. So we had more than half of our students scoring higher than the 50th percentile, or that point is the midway mark for a nationally normed test. So that's not a bad thing. It's just not quite where we want to be. We want to be even further along. So that's what's driven that particular goal. So, Dan?
Thank you. Again, I'm Dan LeGros, filling in for Tim Conway, and I appreciate your time and everybody following along online. Our first goal, Mr. Carragher went over, it's on climate and culture, and it's the same as his. So just to reiterate, we're looking to increase positive responses with our survey by 10% at the end of the year. Our second goal is the one you see above there, the engagement piece. And by June 26, we're looking to reduce disruptive behavior incidents and office write-ups for those disruptive behaviors by about 20%, as measured in our Swiss office referrals. This is a goal that came from staff feedback. When students are disruptive or interrupting the learning process, they're not engaged in their math, and they're not engaged in their learning, and they're not engaged in anything else. And a lot of the other students around them aren't engaged in learning either. So we're really focusing on trying to have engaged students socially, academically, all around the board. So part of our focus, one of our goals this year, is to look to reduce behavioral incidents for disruptive behaviors in the school. Our third goal is an academic one, similarly to Great Brooks. Our academic one is not math this year. It is around reading. So by June 26, we're looking to increase the percentage of students reading at or above grade level by 10% and strengthening students' independent learning skills, as evidenced by improved reading assessment scores and a 20% increase on-time completion rates are turned in assignments. So that's what students are turning into their teachers. We're looking for students to have better executive skills and self-reliant skills and turning their work in on time, because obviously that's an important thing and shows engagement in the classroom. So this is kind of two-part, just increasing their reading at or above grade level by 10% and also increasing the completion of work and turned in assignments on time. All three of our goals were driven by staff feedback. We've had a math goal for as long as I've been there, but I think as long as Mr. Conway's been there as well. So we decided to shine more of a spotlight on the reading. Math was a great year for us. Last year was the first time that we reached above the 50th percentile on every grade level. We're not doing away with our math goal, if anyone was curious. We're keeping things in place the way that we've had them. The supports, the vertical alignment, the teachers getting together during certain times in the week to keep doing the same things that we've been doing in math. We're just shining more of a spotlight on reading, engagement, and positive experiences in the school.
Questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
Thank you. I have a question about the improving the culture goal. How are you going to do that, and how is that measurable?
So one of the things that we have at our disposal, both SMS and GBS, are PBIS, which is Positive School Interventions and Supports. And so at our disposal, there's a school culture climate survey that students can participate in. It's part of the opening day packet information that goes out to parents. In that information, it asks a variety of different questions. It is, a non-academic survey, which is why we have parents sign off on it in that opening day packet, because it provides us some really good information about how do students feel, teasing it out through very specific questions about their time at school and their experience. So essentially, the way that we're going to measure it is we're going to try to measure our, trying to stick to the guidelines that PBIS provides in the manual for this particular survey, to have the students participate in the survey within the first 45 days and then the last 45 days. That's how they suggest that you do it if you're doing two tests or two of these surveys in 1 year. How we get there, that's a little bit of a different question, and it looks a little bit different depending on which school you're at. But a lot of it is really around trying to have student-led opportunities, so providing students opportunity for voice, to have ideas about the activities, about things that they want to engage in, and just trying to build up that portion of student engagement, as well as reaching out and having events essentially that would be open to the community at a broader level than just the school itself. Is that helpful?
Jim?
Yeah, go to the Great Book academic. I just need you to unpack that one for me a little bit, because I mean, at least my first read, it's a little troublesome. So if you can just kind of walk me through your measurement here. And
so our measurement, the way that we're intending to measure this, is essentially through individual projected growth targets. So similar to what I believe I heard the elementary school talk about, working to identify what is a good growth target for students on an individual basis, right? So taking information that we have from historical data that students have and students' growth, or on students, year to year with these different assessments, looking at that and determining where is your growth goal, like where are you looking to, if we are really working hard and working collectively, what is that targeted goal? So, that helpful?
The explanation's helpful. It's also a little troubling in that you've got goals that may not even match up with the expected gains in the national assessment, because you've adjusted those goals based on teachers' assessment of how a student should progress. And we're saying 40% of the kids are going to fall back from even that teacher's assessment, let alone the national assessment. So that,
Not
if I'm reading it.
and I don't know if you're reading it quite correctly or quite the way it's intended. The idea isn't that. The idea is to create a student growth goal, right? Based off of, we're actually using the New Hampshire SAS as the tool for assessing students. Instead of looking at it as a collective, as our previous goal did, which was 70% will be at 50% or better, what we want to do is we want to look a little bit more focused at the individuals, so that we can work with students to set specific goals when it comes to how they're performing or how they're working and how they're getting there. And then also provide all the different supports in order to help them get there. So the objective is to not necessarily not have them, isn't necessarily to have somebody who is in the, let's say, the 20th percentile get to the 70th percentile. I mean, it'd be great. That would be wonderful, amazing growth, right? But to look at it and say, so we want to set a real goal that we can work together to get to or to exceed. Does that help explain it a little bit better?
No, I think I have it, and I don't think my opinion's changed then, in that yeah, you've set a small growth target for someone who has a small growth rate. And we're still saying we're gonna fall back from that if I, by this, right? Whereas, you know, if someone maintains or, you know, keeps on progress according to the, you know, the national, on grade level according to the national testing, and you told me that 60% we're going to meet or exceed that, I would understand that goal. Now I'm saying, you know, more than half of my students are going to do more than the projected growth for the nation between those grade levels. But now I'm looking at this at an individual level. And I've set goals that may not be even up to the national progression. And I'm saying that 40% of my students aren't even gonna make that. So that's you know, it may just be the way it's written, but to me, that goal's a little troublesome.
I don't think that they're going to do worse. It's just that, you know, if the goal is that they increase by 30%, maybe they increase by 25%, but they're not making they're not meeting their individual growth goal. So it doesn't mean that they're regressing.
No, I know that it doesn't say they're reversing. It says that they're not meeting their goals. And we don't have a uniform goal. We have individual goals now.
We don't
which
have
ought to
uniform
be
children.
Easier to meet, right? Or-
Jim. We don't have uniform children. And it doesn't mean that we're not trying or we wouldn't push. Our goal is always to push for at the highest level we can get. But when kids see that they're meeting this individual goal, they're getting somewhere, they're more likely to do better. Yes.
I'm not questioning setting individual goals.
Okay.
I'm questioning why we're accepting that only 60% of our people are going to meet their individual goals. We should be saying, you know, 60% of our people are going to meet or exceed the national goals, right?
Dr. Forrest.
I'm wondering if part of the confusion is language, in that NWEA is a normed referenced test, where the results, when we say 50th percentile, just mean that that child is scoring better than 50% of students nationwide. Adam is trying something new here. He's using the state assessment, which is not a norm reference test. It is what's considered a criterion reference test. So this is a test that is testing kids' progress towards grade level standards specifically. So he's looking at grade level standards and kids' past performance and setting more targeted goals. So I wonder if it's just the norm versus the criterion, and maybe you're right in the way it's worded, you're not.
Part of what we wanted to capture is those students who are doing really well, still providing them a target to continue to do, you know, to continue to push towards.
Yeah, I like the individual targets. I think that's awesome. Right? I question the standard. Right? Once you've set those individual targets.
Okay. Other questions? Yeah. Tom.
Adam, you said you're going to work on tier 2 level behavior goals, and Dan, you said you're going to work on the reducing the discipline referral statistics by 20%. Is that the same goal, just described differently? Because tier 2 sounds like it's a step up, so maybe more in the area of discipline, or are those distinct goals?
Yeah, I would say they're I mean, while they might have some similarities, you know, I think in some ways, all of our goals have similarities, like such as an academic goal for math for us and an academic goal for SMS as well. So there's components of it where maybe it would be looked at as a behavioral goal to a certain degree. You know, with utilizing engagement, we're looking more at the tier 2 structure. So what are we doing for smaller groups? Whereas the engagement is really a broader scope, if that makes sense. At least that's my interpretation. Dan, you.
Yeah, ours is a whole school goal. It's not for tier 2 or 3, so it's different.
Maybe I'm not understanding the tier 2, because I thought that was a behavior goal, and a discipline reduction is a behavior goal too. So, but you guys are not seeing those as, so maybe it's my not understanding what you're describing as the tier 2 part.
So I guess I would go back to what exactly tier 1 instruction would be for all students. So it's something that all students are participating in.
I'm sorry. So I'm thinking that was a behavior goal in terms of not performance. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, guys. Reading at SMS. So you're talking about increasing by 10% for the number of kids that are on grade level. How are you measuring that? Like, what kind of, are you looking at NWEA, SAS, just classroom assessments?
Yeah, from what I understand, I write this goal, but I think we were looking at a maze or a Dibbles or an AIMSweb screener to identify the students,
Okay.
and maybe do a comparison of like the first 45 days versus the last 45 days of the school year, as well as probably individual assessments or work from their teachers.
Great. Okay. And then at GBS, for your MTSS goal, you're talking about different interventions for your tier 2 groups. How are you going to measure the success of those? Like, is it intervention based? Is it also a school-wide like, how are you looking to measure those?
So
success
depending on what the intervention is and depending on what the specific targeted, you know, behavior
Sure.
is, obviously setting kind of like an entry type, like what specific things are we working on, and therefore this is what we are doing in order to address those specific needs. You know, and having that obviously spelled out as this is going to be a specific exit criteria for those you know, those students who are receiving
Okay.
that extra
So like
support.
identifying for that intervention group a pre-post just for that group, and then you're looking for 80% of kind of overall your
Right.
tier 2. Okay.
Right.
And then the last question I have is about the school climate goal. It's, if I understand correctly, it's 10% in each school. It's not like 10% across the board between the 2 middle schools.
Correct.
Like you want it for each school. Okay. And then are you involving parents and community members in that, or are you just looking at student? Like, is the PBS student survey, is that just taking students into account, or is there a piece of it that's also
There's a
wider
piece that is
community?
available that can be used for families, as
that-
well as staff.
But that's not part of this. This is just
This is
looking at
specifically
students.
for that. I don't know how, I can't answer obviously for Tim, but it is very tempting for me to use that.
Yeah.
Because I would be interested in what the community had to say as
Sure.
well, but I really want we really want the focus of the goal to be about students.
Perfect.
and
Okay,
our students.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
For moral support today?
Assistant principal at the high school. Rick Simino is also an assistant principal at the high school, so I'm very fortunate to have 2 people on each side of me working hard every day. Okay, so here to present the 3 goals for the high school. The first one is around a restorative culture. So you'll see the SMART goal up on the board, and Mr. Harper, to one of your questions earlier on a different school goal about climate and culture, this is really that measurement of how we're going to get there. Restorative culture in a school centers on building really strong relationships rooted in trust, repairs harm through an open dialogue, not a monologue, accountability, and community support. So it shifts the focus from punishment to connection, emphasizing belonging and mutual respect. And personal growth. So SWIS is our behavior management system. So we were trying to find a measure where we could get some metrics to show that. So reducing referrals for disrespect, defiance, bullying, and threatening behaviors, some of those measures that are programmed right into SWIS, will give us some information and supports our goal of building a stronger restorative culture. Behaviors like this that happen often signal a breakdown in communication or relationships. So we want to promote a proactive way, have some early intervention. And we've been in the process, I would say, for the last year or two, from shifting from some punitive responses to more supportive and restorative ones, or at least partnering a restorative response when there is something that still warrants, when there's an occurrence or offense that has to happen with discipline. So that's part of that. We also have many tasks towards completion for how we're going to get there and measurable outcome and evidence, and then who's going to be responsible. So for example, last year, as we started moving even more towards this shift, Adar Cohen, and I want to say his name out loud, he's a Conval grad, alum, has been a wonderful partner. He's a consultant who travels all over the country. He's come in and he's done some consulting and some work with us. You know, we certainly have some budgetary restrictions this year. So I'm going to be transferring more into that role as the facilitator. And we have some wonderful educators at our school that are also very interested in restorative practices and been helping lead some teacher-initiated pieces. So one of our tasks towards completion is that all of our educators, 100%, are going to go through 3 professional learning opportunities specifically related to this. There's many tasks towards completion, so if you would like to know many more, I can certainly circle back to them. We're also going to increase our use of circles. So community building circles, some of our instructors right now are using instructional types of circles. It takes a while to get to the harm repair pieces, and right now administration is primarily doing that. We've had some great success having families come in. It doesn't work without parental or familial consent or even student consent for that matter. So we've been doing some of that work. There's other measures that also include our evidence-based SEL curriculum. We use School Connect at the high school. I believe it's second step in the middle school. So there are some surveys associated with that we give. Those are in our first day permissions and forms. And we got some great parental feedback from our NEASC survey from last year. We were in the collaborative conference visit phase. So not this year, but next year we'll be in our decennial visit. So we also have some great data with that. So that's part of our restorative culture. Any questions before I move on? Yes, Mr. Frederickson?
I'm just kind of intrigued by your use of the word restorative.
Yes.
That kind of suggests there's been a lot of backsliding.
I'm sorry?
That suggests there's been a lot of backsliding. That behavior used to be better in the past than it is now.
Well, when I think of restorative, really it talks about, right, like building those relationships and fostering community and repairing harm, or like, so there's a way to be like proactive, but also restoring something. So, I'm not sure if you have another question to it, but I think I'll be going into my 6th year as principal, and we've definitely made progress in building culture. I can't talk about Conval pre-COVID because I wasn't here. I started July 1, 2020 when everything was at a very different place. So there's been some intentional steps, but like we have to keep working to build. All right. Next, we have our instructional practices goal. I think I'm incredibly excited to share the goal this year because this was true, authentic teacher voice and leadership. We had been working on instructional practices, and Eric is here as my witness. Only tell the truth, Eric. We had teachers come to us this year and say, hey, can we kind of take a go around at what we're trying to do with instructional practices? We have some ideas that we'd really like to bring forth to administration. So they did that, and then they came to present to administration. This was about a month before the end of the school year. And then after we talked through some pieces and worked together, then they presented to our entire staff a few days before the end of the school year. And I was looking around and every staff member was engaged with what their colleagues were saying. So it was wonderful. Some data in the past, when we have done some in-house professional development days, has shared that the favorite activity is when we do an instructional showcase with our staff and teachers are learning from each other and seeing what some of them are doing in the classroom, picking up different tips or techniques they might be able to transfer into what they're doing, even if the content is different. So you'll see the SMART goal up there, implementing a structured approach to staff professional learning with an emphasis on collaborative PD activities, evidenced, and here's the evidence piece, by teachers implementing new or refined instructional practices in 2/3 of their classes. That'd be 67% of their students. Most of our staff teach 3 blocks and have 1 off block every day. So a few exceptions to that. And there's different ways that we'll be able to measure that. So this teacher leader group actually spent the time coming up with a template, coming up with different activities. There's a whole activity log and activity menu. There's over a dozen, even more than that, that they could use. And it's already on a shared drive for staff if this is to go forward, so they can kind of build their individual goal off of that. And when we have our check-in meetings or a summative meeting at the end of the year, they can bring their artifacts and their logs to show what they tried. We also spoke with the teachers that even when we go in to do a mini observation, right, you just see what you see. It's a snapshot in time. But during that post conversation, if there's something we had to have been in there for that you are working on, feel free to highlight it so we can kind of talk through that. So this was a really exciting piece. And, by focusing on our instructional practices with all of our students in the classroom, we're not just investing in professional development for our educators and staff. We're actively shaping that culture of continuous improvement. And there was real genuine excitement for this. And I loved that. I didn't even lead this out to staff. This came from all of staff. So we worked in the refinement process. So that's exciting. There's many other tasks towards completion as well. But did anyone have any questions on that? Okay. And then we have our reading goal. So this is by next June, 50% of students will meet or exceed their individual projected growth as determined by the fall to spring NEWA data scores. We also added in the SAT scores will meet or exceed the state average in reading. A few years ago, we had a goal in math that took us 2 years to meet that goal. And what we've noticed in reviewing all of our school data is we certainly have some work to do with reading. So that is where part of this goal came from. We said the goal is essential because it reflects our commitment to academic growth for all of our students, not just proficiency, very similar to what Ms. Edmonds said before, kind of meeting the student where they're at and then helping them grow. One of our tasks towards completion, and Eric actually spoke with the NEWA representative too, was finding ways to sit with students and kind of show them where they were at before, so they're kind of aware of where they are, and kind of progress check in with the students. Some of our tasks towards completion talk about analyzing some of what teachers have access to and developing targeted practices for students in their classes, develop and implementing different NEWA and SAT style reading practices into the content areas connected to our mapped curriculum, implementing different types of instructional practices, which also kind of dovetails into our instructional practices goal, and there's some activity menu items regarding that. Monthly staff check-ins, where we're going to have every department take a turn, kind of showing what they're doing in regards to reading in their content areas as we all work together. This is not just something for the English department. Finding ways to celebrate, like if we hit our goal, how are we celebrating that with our students so they can see that reward, and making this that school-wide initiative, also communicating with families, like what we're doing along the way. So together these targets, we're hoping, supports data-informed, student-centered approach that has expectations and continuous improvement. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what is not being presented tonight are the SAU goals. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, we have some new people. We have a person that's not here yet. We've also had a couple of our people who have been, it's that time to take their vacation so that they, we don't want them to take it during the school year. So people have been on vacation. So our team hasn't really been complete. The other reason is there has been, I know the board has not finalized their goals for the year yet, but what I've heard the board talk about, there's a lot of overlap with what the SAU is talking about. So I would like us to kind of decide if we're going to take the next board meeting or if we're setting up a different meeting for a goal workshop, because I think we can iron out what makes sense to kind of fall more in the SAU side of goals and what would make more sense to fall in the board side of goals. But I think we're pretty aligned in the topics that I've heard people talk about.
Okay, again, I think we had talked before about choosing one of two ways, either doing an evening meeting in between school board meetings to put our goals together, or doing a Saturday meeting to finalize the goals. So we have comments or questions on that. What would people prefer? Yeah.
From what I see on the calendar, the only gap on a Tuesday where there's not a committee meeting would be September 9th, and the 12th of August, which would probably be too soon, being next week. And there's potentially a communications meeting, so I would be fine with the Saturday personally.
Couple hours, yeah. Okay, well, let's do it this way. Show of hands for the doing it September 9th. 3, okay? Yep. Yes, that's the in-between Tuesday in September. Okay, let's do it again. Show of hands for doing it the in-between Tuesday in September. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so being good in math, that's more than half. So we will do it the 9th at, I'm going to do 6 o'clock. So the 9th at 6 o'clock to work on goals.
Can I just share the good news for principals in the back? You will not have to come to that because you've already presented your goals. SAU people need to come to that. And principals, you're always invited.
Yes. And me? Yeah. And
Well, it's public, but we can have no public
right, we can't.
participation.
Right. It won't be streamed.
So they can
but
observe.
We can't have a not public. What I will also do in the meantime is, we have we'll get out to you on the board website, past goals and try to put together a little more organized fashion the minutes from before that we had, so that we'll have some things going into that meeting rather than trying to go from scratch. So, okay, any other questions? Okay. We have field trip proposals. I have a motion for the field trip proposal. Yeah. We have to do them one by one. Yeah. So the South Meadow grade 8 students request to travel to Philadelphia to visit historic places from American history. We have a motion.
Yeah, I have a motion to accept the grade 8 AHT trip to Washington DC, Gettysburg, Lancaster, and Philadelphia for
Yep, that's fine.
the purpose of
Yep.
whatever they're going to do down there.
I have a second.
Second.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Conval High School grade 12 students request to go to Kennebunk, Maine, June 5th and 6th to engage in community building activities. I have a motion for that.
I move that we approve that.
Okay. Second?
I'll second it. I also have a question.
Yep.
So you're staying in Kennebunkport on this trip and you're whitewater rafting. It seems like there's no whitewater in Kennebunkport unless there's a hurricane, right? So why do we stay in Kennebunkport when hiking and whitewater rafting are in the western part of the state generally?
Yes, I'll have to check in on this specific trip, but this is the senior class that gave a proposal and a presentation. I don't have it with me right now, but it was about kind of camping out and doing the whitewater rafting, and we worked through different opportunities. So I will check on the location for you. Yes, my understanding is that it's more like 10 steps to the rafting, so I will get back to you on that.
Okay.
I have a question. I have a comment.
Yes.
Having seen Heather paddle a canoe, I just say any students that end up in a raft with her should have life jackets on.
Are we ready to vote on this, or, yes, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, exchange students, we need to move into non-public to discuss that. And we do have a few non-public things, mostly for your information. So please hang with us while we get through these things. So can I have a motion to go into non-public? Well, there's nobody here.
I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2C,
Okay.
for the purpose of
Staff. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, don't we have to go?
Start down, Sarah. Mike, yes.